Feng Shui is all about creating an environment that's peaceful and serene and reducing stress and all those things that actually contribute to people's well-being.
At Integrative Nutrition, you know we talk a lot about the idea of primary food, everything that feeds you that doesn't come on a plate. And your environment is one of those things, and it might surprise you just how big a role it plays in your overall health and happiness. Kate, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Can you briefly explain for us just what Feng Shui is and how it originated?
Sure. So in the simplest terms, Feng Shui is Chinese for wind, water, and it is the Chinese art and science of placement, which actually is about creating balance and flow in people's environment and creating positive energies. And of course, then there are all these ways that we actually implement how do we do that in people's environment. And it actually started, it's thousands of years old. And, you know, if you think about it, it started in China, and I think of like the agrarian societies where people started having farms. They wanted to find land that actually had good light, great water, plenty of food to support and sustain their homes and their farms. And so Feng Shui is all about finding those elements to help sustain and support one's lifestyles.
How does the practice of Feng Shui tie into health and wellness?
It's a good question. I actually think Feng Shui is all about health and wellness. And if you think about it, you know, when I think about disease, for instance, or I think about people getting sick, stress is probably the biggest contributor to most illnesses and disease. And Feng Shui is all about creating an environment that's peaceful and serene and reducing stress and all those things that actually contribute to people's well-being. So at the most fundamental level, I always say it's about health. I also want to talk a little bit, we have in Feng Shui, we use a tool that we call, it's a compass, a special tool, compass called a bagua. And in the center of the bagua is the Tao, and it has the yin-yang. And when we look at people's homes and spaces, we're looking at different areas, but in the center, that space is always health. So all the other areas in life revolve around health, and health is the center thing. Because we always say without health, you have nothing. So Feng Shui is actually all about creating health and well-being in someone's home, in their personal space. There's a whole program in Feng Shui specifically about health.
Why do you believe that the environment can have such a significant impact?
I'm going to answer it in a couple different ways. So I always think of, when I think of Feng Shui, right, there's this being, right, and we're in our home, and our home is in a building, or it's in a yard, it's in a neighborhood, it's in a city, right? You're kind of going out in the circle, city, state, country, world, right? So we are in the center of all of that. And so we're, to me, it's a de facto, we are very much influenced by our environment. How we choose to arrange our space is actually a mirror of who we are. So there's an expression called house as mirror of self. So the way Feng Shui looks is when we go into our space and we look at how things are arranged, that external world is actually a map to what's going on in you internally. So if there's blocked energy over here, there's blocked energy inside. And so what we do is we arrange the space and we unblock the energy, and it actually opens up things in people. And we are definitely impacted by our environment, but by rearranging the environment and impacting the people who live in that environment, they become more peaceful, they become more serene, they become more productive, they become more prosperous, and then they give back to that environment. So there's a synergy that goes on, but our focus is always on the environment and then how it impacts people.
Do you think Feng Shui is something that health coaches can incorporate into their services?
Absolutely. There are two ways that I want to answer that, which is that at the most fundamental level, I was looking at your literature, and I was looking at the circle of life. and assessing, right? So people assessing their clients. So in the circle of life, there's different segments, and there's actually one of the segments called home environment, and then there's things like creativity, and there's finance, and there's education. Well, in Feng Shui, when we look at people's spaces and we look at their homes, we look at creativity, we look at wealth and prosperity, we look at health, we look at all the things that that circle of life looks at. And when I thought about it, I thought at the most basic level, just to know that someone's home environment actually impacts them. So if you're looking at food or you're looking at their health and wellness and what do you need to do, it's important to also consider the home environment. And at the most basic level, clean house. I hate to say it's very practical, and remove the clutter. Clutter creates more stress. I spend more time working with people where they need to remove their clutter in order to allow flow and energy to move in their home in a healthy way.
Kate, it's such a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you everybody for watching as well.
Thank you.